This is the 2015 Audi A4, and as good as it looks, a lot of people call it bland. Look at this fit and finish. Exquisite. It's bland and stylish. Elegant. Sophisticated. Sporty. Bland. Turbocharged. And slow. It packs 220 horsepower and 258 foot-pounds of torque. Moans to 60 miles an hour in 7.1 seconds. And grips the road with full-time Quattro all-wheel drive. So why would you want this instead of an Audi A3 or a Mercedes C300 or the Volkswagen Golf R or GTI? I know why. As bland as the A4 is on the outside, just look at this interior. Exquisite. Even more exquisite are the little details, such as this hand vent that looks like it came out of a bowling alley. It's very useful for when you're in sporty driving and need to dry your hand off. I like this feature a lot. Another feature I love is this arcade-style start-stop button for the engine. But before you can use this, you have to put coins in this slot here. And with that done, let's go ahead and start the engine. Brilliant! These cup holders are fantastically useless. See, you can slide your armrest out and cover up the small cup holder that you never use. And if you have someone else in the car, you can make them use the small one because it doesn't fit any coffee cups. While you can use this one, which is too deep to actually hold a small coffee or a medium coffee, forcing you to drive with a large latte from Starbucks. And that's a benefit, actually. And the beautiful thing here is Audi has prevented drowsy driving by forcing you to drive with a large coffee. This is my favorite feature. When you're done driving and you need your coins back, all you have to do before you stop the car is pull up on this for your coin return. Oh. I guess that's not a coin return. Oh, that's right. That's the electronic parking brake. My mistake. Even though these cup holders are quite useless, and even though this air vent doesn't really help, and even though this coin slot doesn't make any sense at all, the reality is these cup holders are out of the way. That is actually used to hold your coins, and this slot is where you would put your car key, but because this car has keyless start, stop, entry, and exit from the car, I don't need to put the key anywhere except keep it in my pocket. These are handy features. One thing that the Audi A4 has that the Mercedes does not is a standard sunroof. On the C300, I think it's a $1,400 option. That makes no sense. Thankfully, it comes with the Audi. Another testament to the blandness of Audi is the lack of an OnStar or Mercedes M-Brace style monitoring and tracking system. Since this car does not include a monitoring or tracking system like Mercedes M-Brace or GM's OnStar, you are off the grid with the exception of the Audi multimedia system with Connect. So if I open here, you'll see the SIM card. And this SIM card is what allows you to have Google Earth in your map. So all I have to do here is go to Map View, Google Earth, and we're gonna rock and roll with some Google Earth maps. Once they load, of course. And there you go. Very nice. So here I have the map, and you can see Highway 35 here, the interstate is red in some areas, orange in others, orange here, but green. And the green is free-flowing traffic, the red is slow traffic, and the orange is sort of intermediary traffic. It's moving, but it's not necessarily stop and go. And as I zoom out here, I will have Google Earth and other streets. The higher trafficked streets, the more traveled streets, are yellow, and the green band on the side of these streets corresponds to the different traffic. Another benefit of this car is that it has voice control, so I could just do map view standard.
Standard map.
And now I've lost Google Earth, but I have a regular map, which will now show me more icons of the various items or points of interest that are near me. And if I want to zoom in or zoom out, I can use the MMI controls down here, or I can go map, zoom, 300 yards.
Scale 300 yards.
And the map is automatically zoomed in, and I can see more streets and more points of interest that I have set up. And if I go into settings, route criteria allows me to choose if I want to reroute based on the traffic. And I always turn that on. Alternate routes allow me to choose 3 different options, but I would prefer just to have this system calculate one route and go with that. I can include highways, toll roads, and ferries. And it has an interesting setting here for seasonal roads, which would be in the winter in mountainous areas, and time restricted roads, which may be in heavily trafficked urban areas. I'm not sure, I've never come across that. But the overall operation and ease of use of this car has been very well thought out, and compared to Mercedes and BMW, which they always seem to be changing up their systems, the Audi systems are very consistent across the board, and their changes are very minimal. Another awesome part of this MMI system is that you have the known speed limits that are recorded in the GPS. There's no camera nonsense in this one where it's going to see the sign posted. It only uses the database in the navigation system. When you get the tech package in this car, you also get the blind spot monitoring system, which is that little button there in the A-pillar. There are little windows in your mirrors there that light up as yellow when someone is in your blind spot, or better yet, approaching you quickly in the adjacent lane, which helps you with judging whether or not that traffic is worth pulling out in front of. This is normal drive mode, and if you want to get into sport mode, you just knock it back, and the car actually will downshift and put you at a higher rev range for gear changes. You can just tap it back, and you're back into drive. Also, if you knock it over to the right, you get a way to downshift and manually control your gear changes. You can also upshift, and at any time you can just knock it back into drive, and you're in the last mode you were at. I am not really a fan of the ergonomics. What I've been told is that the front of the seat should be as high as possible so that your knees are bent, so that you can push the brake all the way to the floor, or as far down as it will go. And that was from a video that I saw regarding the A8 protection line from a bunch of those hardcore militaristic defensive drivers that drive heads of state. But overall, I don't always drive like I'm chauffeuring a head of state because I'm in an A4. Just the ergonomics of the seat being so far away from the door makes the car feel bigger, but I'm not necessarily comfortable enough. And the dead pedal is way to the left, and the gas pedal is directly in line with my knees. So in order to alleviate these issues, listening to the professional drivers and lifting the front portion of the seat higher and getting as close as possible without being too close, that is actually the best, most ergonomic driving position that you can have. Once I'm settled in, the seating position is what it is, but the comfort level is actually quite good. The comparison of this to the C300 in seat comfort wise, these bolsters don't come out enough on this Audi, and the seat doesn't extend out long enough in the Audi, and all those problems are alleviated in the new C300 Sport. They have wider bolsters, they have longer seats, they're a little wider feeling wise, they feel wider in the bottom, and they're not so inboard as they are in the Audi. The C-Class has a great interior and perfect cup holders, but I cannot ignore the column shifter. The AC controls are very simple. You have some heated seats in the front with 3 modes, and then you also have a set temperature that the car will achieve rather rapidly, and you can set a different temperature for the passenger side as well. This Audi is black on black, and the AC is phenomenal. Never have I had such a cold car, and I think that's a testament to the split system that Audi put in this car. It is fantastic. My biggest gripe is that this car doesn't have paddles unless you get the sport suspension. And the sport suspension, as a part of the sport package, lowers the car, stiffens it up, but gives you seats that have those lower bolsters that slide out, but they also have the thicker bolsters that sort of pinch in a little bit more, and they hold you in. But for the highway and for cruising, I don't think the sport package is optimal because of the lowered ride height. I would rather have a higher suspension rather than risk damaging the oil pan or suspension components or exhaust, pretty much anything under the car. I'd rather have it lifted to the normal ride height. And even if you get the optional drive select, there is no adjustable suspension. So what you're limited to here versus the C300 is, it is what it is. You get what you get. Whereas for the C300 with the Airmatic option, which happens to be cheaper than the optional sunroof, you can actually change your ride height. You can actually dial it in for a sporty or comfortable ride. The A4 is still a very good ride. It's very smooth and very relaxing. I just feel that in this day and age, in 2015, that an air suspension, even though the C300 is the industry first in that segment for air suspension, I think it's almost a necessity these days due to the neglect of the roads in many parts of this country. Understeer is quite minimal, although I find it really hard in this car to really see what I mean about the suspension. As for the layout of this car, in comparison to the C300, which has that funky iPad tablet that isn't angled enough towards the driver, in my opinion, what you have in this A4 is a pretty high dash, which feels good, in my opinion. And you have very uncluttered lines, and I can read and see everything at a glance. And that's important to me. On the highway, this thing just purrs and is buttery smooth. And I don't have a problem with that. The only problem I have is with the acceleration off the line, and I think that it is so slow that it isn't an ideal car for me in traffic situations. On the open highway though, this thing is perfect. So when Audi has a brochure that says 0 to 60 in 6.2 seconds, and when I get a video that shows no matter how hard I try and no matter how I do this, I only get 7.1 seconds, this car is pathetic off the line. However, when you're on the highway, such as Interstate 35 over there, when you want to pass people, you just drop it into sport and the car takes off. If you're a commuter who putts around in the city a lot and doesn't really go anywhere, this is not the car for you. However, if you have a semi-long commute and you want 30 miles per gallon on the highway, which this will do, and you want to be able to pass people quickly, this probably is a good car for you. Me, however, I'm not convinced yet, because the way this 4-cylinder moans and groans and just painfully tells me it's going to make me happy. What I find is basically that the car is lacking character, and I think that's hard to say, hard to describe, because I know it's in video, but basically what I'm trying to get at here is the character I get from a diesel, which is very low revving, very plucky, very torquey at the bottom end, makes that car fun. This is just hard to be fun, and that's in sport mode. Another thing though is, if you're just trying to cruise and just be comfortable in this car, sit and drive, accelerate slowly, or at least not briskly, what happens is the car constantly wants to change into the highest gear as soon as possible, and it almost sounds like the engine's being lugged. So, second gear, third gear, and at 30 miles, 35, 40, and it's already 46, 47 miles an hour, 48, 50, and we are in 7th gear. And the problem with this is, if I'm cruising, now we're in 8th at 52, and when you're in this 50, 52 range, what happens is your car is constantly jumping between 7th gear and 8th gear, 7th gear, 8th gear. And at 50, 51 miles an hour, if you're just steadily cruising, what's happening is that you feel this judder. You're not really hearing the difference in the exhaust note or the pitch, but what you're feeling is the 7th gear, 8th gear engagement dance that goes on back and forth in this car. And that's unacceptable. This is where I would rather have a manual transmission. And it's still available in this car, which is a good thing. Well, I don't have much range left on my tank of current fuel, which is Texaco 93 octane, but we're gonna head to the E85 station and fill up with some E85. The performance is relatively the same, but the exhaust does sound a little throatier, a little meaner. Even as E85 is cheaper than 93 octane, I don't believe it's worth the cost. And here we are at the E85 station. The price is $1.69. Kind of pricey actually for the cheap crap that it is. Alright, well, we filled up with E85 and I have my receipt here. But something to consider when filling up with E85 is, even though it's bioethanol and it's non-toxic, there's 2% of that solution of bioethanol. That 2% actually includes a denaturant, and the denaturant is toxic. So if you ever think that E85 is completely harmless on your hands, think again. That is some pretty nasty stuff. And What we're going to do now is we're going to start the car up, and it'll just immediately switch over to E85. And that's it. E85 away. And we'll just put that in drive. I'm going to put it in sport. And now on the freeway on the way back, you'll get to hear some of the exhaust noise. I love these Texas overpasses where you just do this freestyle U-turn without having to stop. I think that with the fuel economy of the C300 and the comfort level of the C300 with the adaptive air suspension, if you have the 50 grand to spend, go get a C300. If you're going to be budget conscious and maybe pay cash for your car or maybe finance your car, the Audi A4 is pretty compelling at $42,000. You're not only saving 8 grand versus the Mercedes, but you're getting a car that I feel Audi won't be making in the future. When that new A4 comes out, I don't think it will cost 2 grand more than a loaded A3. I think the new A4 will cost something in the range of 50 grand. And if you're looking for a new car today and you want something that is affordable, efficient, economic, comfortable, fast, this would be a good contender. If you are looking for a hot car, hot being quick and fun, there is something better, or more powerful at least. It has 292 horsepower and 280 foot-pounds of torque, which is more than this A4. This A4 doesn't even come close. It's like 70 horsepower less. But there's a 2016 version of the Golf R from Volkswagen, which will have the same engine as the Audi S3, the same all-wheel drive system as the S3, which is a Haldex, and it will have basically the same price, about 5 grand less. But what you can get in the Golf R that you cannot get in the S3 is a manual transmission. So who wouldn't want a 292 horsepower all-wheel drive 6-speed manual German fun car? If you think that the Audi A4 is a little too bland, and if you think that the A3 is a little too small, and if you think the C300 is a little too expensive, then it's worth it to look at the Golf R. So, in conclusion, I think that even though I own this Audi A4, I own it because it is the best bland Audi you can buy. Bye. Congratulations! You just made it through a half-hour video about an Audi A4. That's perfectly bland of you. If you're not subscribed, please do so already. It's free. And I'd like to know more about what you think about the Audi A4 and my videos. So please leave some comments and suggestions below. I will get back to you. Thanks for watching.